Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Disgustingly Resilient podcast, and today we're on another episode of Profiles of Decay, the mini-series where we look at units that are maybe overlooked, slept on, and maybe get you to have a second look at them and give them a try. And today's topic is obviously the one on the screen right now. It is the big crab boy himself, sort of spurred on by our resident Don Hooson, the Lord of the Crabs, the Crab Cabal King, who managed to get a ninth place finish at the LVO using 2 Defilers in his list, and it's kind of got everyone scratching their head and looking at this unit once again. Now, before we get into it, if you do enjoy the content, please feel free to leave a like and a subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. If you really like it, you can also leave a comment, by the way. If you really like it, consider becoming a Play Green. You click the join button below. It's £3 a month. It's the equivalent of like a coffee, or probably less these days. Starbucks is a bit expensive. You get access to our Discord, you get access to our giveaways, you get access to our plague surgery streams, all sorts of cool stuff like that. So if that is something that interests you, consider checking that out and joining up. That would be awesome. But if not, don't worry about it, just glad you're here. So let's crack on to today's topic of the Defiler. So, first things first, let's look at the Defiler's datasheet. So it's a movement 8 vehicle with toughness 10, a 3-up save, an impressive 14 wounds to be fair to it, leadership 6 as standard, and OC 5, which is actually kind of high given that most tanks are 3 to 4, so having a 5 OC is actually quite nice. It can take an absolute plethora of weapons. So you get your main cannon that you always get is your Defiler cannon. This is a D6 plus 3 shot, strength 10, AP 1 on flat 3 damage gun. It's quite a nice stat line. Flat 3 damage is really good at the current meta. All the elite troops in most armies tend to be 3 wounds tops out, so being able to just one-tap them is really nice. Plus it comes with blast, so it can help you against some hordes. Strength 10 obviously means you're wounding most infantry in the game on 2s, and you even get a good chance to hit like medium vehicles, and even, you know, pop transports, which is quite nice. Downside obviously being the AP 1 there, but good range as well, especially for our army, which kind of struggles with long range. 48-inch range is very nice. You then get a combination of small arms fire, so you get a Havoc launcher, which we're all used to Havoc launchers at this point from our Predators and our Rhinos. Strength 5 blast shots at range, 0 AP 1 damage, and you also get a combi bolter, or a plague combi bolter, or a combi weapon, sorry, for some extra little pot shots. I always recommend the plague combi bolter. I just find hitting on 4 is just unreliable, and I'd rather have the 4 shots with lethal hits. It's just a nice little pop gun. Then, on one arm, you get a choice between a Reaper autocannon, a twin Plague heavy bolter, and a twin las cannon. So, unfortunately, twin las cannon is one-shot twin-linked las cannon. The twin heavy bolter, all this is twin-linked, by the way. The twin Plague heavy bolter is a twin-linked heavy bolter, but because it's a Death Guard one, we also get lethal hits and sustained hits one. So, any 6 to hit are going to cause an automatic wound and an extra shot, plus the wound's going to be rerolled at strength 5, AP 1, 2 damage. These are actually kind of slept on at the moment. I've been playing Plague Heavy Bolters on Predators recently after the Discord kind of advised me to give them a whirl, and I give them a whirl, and they're actually kind of impressive. So, you know, Plague Heavy Bolter is probably going to be my go-to choice here. One shot on the last cannon is too whiffy, it can just go off wide and miss too many times, but Plague Heavy Bolter is a nice consistent stream of little firepower, especially with the twin linked as well, to help it make sure it wounds. And then you have the Reaper auto cannon, which is not twin linked, it's just got sustained hits 1 with 4 shots and devastating wounds, but only strength 7, AP 1 and 1 damage. It's not the greatest weapon, so over my personal preference there would be the twin Plague Heavy Bolter. Then on the other arm, you get a choice of a twin heavy flamer with the ignores cover, twin linked strength 5 flamer. Or you can swap that out for a Defiler Scourge, which is going to give you 3 extra melee attacks at strength 12, AP 1 and 2 damage. These are extra attacks. You get to make these in addition to the Defiler Claws, which come in at a whopping 5 attacks at strength 16, AP 3 and D6 plus 1 damage. It is a las cannon hand. You swing las cannons in melee, which is really scary because this is a very hard hitting melee profile, and 5 attacks is a decent amount. It's nothing crazy, but being able to basically slam people with a strength 16 las cannon in close combat is very intimidating. You're wounding even toughness 9 transports will be down to T8 because of contagion, and you'll be wounding those things on 2s, so you can really rip apart vehicles, infantry, all sorts of things with this. So it's a really nice melee profile to have. On top of this, you have the classic Deadly Demise D3, so you explode for D3, standard. You do get the army rules, so you'll be spreading contagion as per standard, and your actual rule is the Scuttling Walker. So every time you make a normal advance or fallback, you can move over friendly monster and vehicle models, which is nice because it means if you're going to run lots of vehicles, you're not going to get stuck in car parks as much, which is nice to have because you can already naturally move over infantry. So now you can move over the other Defilers or Predators or Rhinos, etc. And you can act as if terrain features that are 4 inches or less in height are not there. This is going to be terrain dependent. In the UK, we don't have any terrain that is 4 or less. They've ruled it that it's 4.01 millimeters, which is fucking stupid. So you can't walk over it, so that rule doesn't really work there. But if you're on GW terrain, there are some parts where you can actually walk over, which is quite nice. Lets you cut some corners, get some extra movement, which is going to be quite important, given the poor thing only moves 8 inches. And as a Demon Engine, it also comes stock with the 5+ invulnerable save, which honestly will save your ass more times than you think. Sometimes people commit to it, they shoot like an AP4 melter at you. Normally a vehicle just goes pop, but you've rolled, 2 out of 3 5-up invulnerables, and the Defiler that they thought was going to be dead is now still stood there and standing and ready to swing back. So having a 5+ invulnerable is always good, and it makes Demon Engines a really great standout unit because they do have that chance to spike the invuln and stay alive, which is really, really nice. So what are the strengths of a Defiler? It's a combined arms unit for one. Combined arms means that you basically get to do loads of things at once. It comes with some main weaponry, the battle cannon, the bolt, and the las cannon, for example, which is really nice for you to just have firepower down range. It also comes with an assortment of small arms weapons for dealing with chaff units, and obviously it's combined ranged and melee with the claws and the scourge. Now, what this means is this unit never really has a bad spot. It's always contributing. It's either firing its guns or it's chopping some up in melee, and obviously the best case scenario, it's doing both in one turn. And these means that these units are always basically able to get value, whether that's punching a tank apart while blasting some troops down the range, or maybe it's using the cannon to crack a transport and then charging the contents and crabbing them up on side. So it's really nice for that because combined arms units just always are getting efficiency and always getting effect in a game. Like for example, a Fleshmoor bloat drone might never get any value because it might die before it ever makes a charge, whereas it's very unlikely a Defiler's not going to at least get to shoot one, so it's going to get some value out of itself. As we said, it is a Demon Engine invuln and 14 wounds. That's quite high for a vehicle. Most vehicles about 10, 11. To have 14 can sometimes mean you survive on the couple extra wounds you had. And once again, as we just said, that Demon Engine invuln can really come in clutch. For you passing an invuln, they usually would assume you just die to like, a Gladiator Lancer, for example. And now suddenly you spike the 5-up invulns. Maybe they wound you twice. They're about to do d6 plus 3 damage with each shot or whatever it is. And then suddenly you pass 2 5-ups and now you're alive. The Lancer's done nothing and you're there ready to retaliate. So it can really, as I said before, that's one of the key strengths to these units is 5-up invulnerable is always there and it's always in your back pocket, and sometimes it comes in clutch and saves the day. It's also a fire platform and a great charge deterrent in one. So the problem with your humble Predator here, let's hold up this old Predator here. So the humble Predator is a great fire platform. It's cheap, it's useful, it puts out a lot of shots, it's a great little fire platform. The problem is when someone walks up to this Predator with a melee weapon. Because the Predator, unfortunately, you might not gather this, guys, but it's not that great in melee. So people don't really have to worry about getting close to it. Now, they've got to be scared about getting shot by it, but they don't really have to be scared about it coming and charging them, maybe outside of a tank shock. However, the Defiler has, as we said, 5 strength 16 las cannon punches, on top of 3 potential Scourge extra attacks. Now, if I, for example, walked the Carnivore, which I'm like painting here, up to an enemy Lehman Russ, that Lehman Russ is probably pooping itself because I'm about to charge it. The Defiler, though, if I fail that charge, there's a good chance that Defiler's about to walk on over and rip my Carnivore limb from limb. And there's also a chance that if he passes invulns in close combat, he's also going to rip my Carnivore limb from limb. It's a very, very important thing to have a firing platform. It's a Lehman Russ with claws. It has the ability to defend itself in close combat. Like, you can't even really just tag this thing, so you might normally, pile in some 8-bound and kill a unit and then tag the Predator so it's going to have -1 to hit and it has to fall back and you can stop it. No one wants to tag this thing because do you want to tag the Defiler, which is then going to hit you with 5 strength 16 las cannons? Probably not. So it's a great charge deterrent, and it's a Lehman Russ that is basically able to defend itself and hold its own in melee combat, which is really nice. It also, as we said before, has really nice long range shooting. One thing we struggle with outside of really Predators pretty much is our long range shooting. Like Plague Burst mortars are okay, but everything else is 24 and 12 on that thing, whereas Predators like 48. This is a 48 to 36 inch range, which is going to be able to cover most angles on a board. The battle cannon's got great range. The twin heavy bolter's got great range. And that's one important thing for Death Guard, because it means people can't just play long angles against you and sit there and be completely immune to retaliation. Units like the Defiler and Predators can actually reach out and touch them back, which is actually, you know, quite a big strength to have. I mean, you can even look at Brigands. They're only 24-inch range, so they can be outranged. And really the 12 because they want to get that melter range. Whereas the Defiler can plump away from 48 inches, 36 inches, and still do as much maximum damage as it could with its firepower, which is really nice to have. And as we said, let's not overlook the 5 strength 16 AP3 D6 +1 damage melee, because that's a lot. That is one of the only thing that hits harder in our army is Mortarion. And even that's arguable because the strength and the AP is the same. Mortarion does a flat 4 damage, so technically the Defiler can actually hit potentially harder with up to 7 damage a swing. So on a god roll, the Defiler actually outdamages Mortarion. So it is one of the hardest hitting melee units we have, and again, it's nothing can be safe near this. Knights can't be safe near this. Land Raiders can't be safe near this. This thing can smash anything apart, provided it gets those 5 attacks to connect. So let's not overlook the fact that Strength 16, D6 +1 damage is a crazy melee profile. Even like Redemptor Dreadnoughts, Brutalis Dreadnoughts, they're flat 3 damage. Like D6 +1, potentially 7 damage of a single hit is wild. So obviously that's gotta be a strength going for the Defiler there. However, let's talk about some weaknesses, because it's not all sunshines and rainbows. The main problems that the Defiler has is its lack of AP on its shooting. It has a lot of AP 0 and AP 1 shooting. The battle cannon is only AP 1. That's not good. Cover will instantly negate that, so it's basically AP 0. The Heavy Bolter and the Flamer, for example, again, AP 1. The Flamer does have ignore cover, yes, but the Heavy Bolter does not. So again, it's effectively AP 0. And the Combi and the Havoc weapons are all AP 0 naturally. So anything with good saves is usually quite safe against the Defiler. And this is the problem it has in CSM. The problem it has in World Eaters is AP 0 and 1 is kind of effectively useless at the moment. It doesn't really do much outside of like killing hordes of like orcs and stuff. So it's not great. It's also an extremely large model, and this is made even worse if you choose to equip the Scourge, because it adds this big like tentacly arm onto the front of it, and this means it can be quite hard to hide because it's quite large. It's a big crab, it's a big boy, and it does have all sticky out bits. Now, depending on how you build it, I would recommend almost going for a gorilla pose with it, so having its legs just on its knuckles in front of it gives it a nice solid profile. You don't really want to, as much as it's cool to have dynamic pose, you're like gripping a guy up in the arm, it's just going to make it much harder to play, because if you're trying to move this thing and you've got an arm sticking out over here, then that's going to be a lot harder to hide behind a building than if it was just, you know, all together in the center. So do be aware of that, and the Scourge amplifies that because the Scourge really does stick out quite far forward. This is kind of a double-edged sword, as we'll touch on later, but it's just something to be aware of. It is a large model. It doesn't have to have a base, though. The Soul Grinder is arguably needs a base in UKTC for some bullshit reason. However, the Defiler does not have a base. It never came with a base, so it doesn't have a base. So I've said it in the past before, I got my Defilers and my Soul Grinders confused. I apologise, but the Defiler does not. So you don't have to worry about that. But this is also kind of made worse by the fact it's only movement 8. So it's a movement 8 cumbersome model, which it means trying to get around the board with this thing is problematic at times. It's slow, it's big, its pivot costs it movement, and that means trying to get where it wants to be to make charges can be quite painful, really, in all honesty. And on top of that, it is an expensive model. It's 190 points that you cannot lose for free. It is, you can get 2 bloat drones and have change. You can get a Predator and have 60 points spare. PBCs are cheaper than this, and we already consider them overcosted. So this is an expensive unit that has to get some value back. You can't just throw this thing away. If this thing dies for getting a shot off or getting some value back, you're really going to feel that sting. This is not a cheap trading unit. This is a core unit that you're trying to make work and get value out of. However, all of that being said, let's think about the Defiler in context of Death Guard specifically. What do we bring? Well, we bring Contagion. And -1 toughness actually hits some really important breakpoints on this model. The Defiler battle cannon, being strength 10, is in a weird spot where it only wounds main battle tanks on 4s. It does wound transports on 3s, but the 4s to wound versus main battle tanks is a bit not great. However, -1 toughness now puts them to toughness 9, which means you're now hitting the breakpoint of wounding them on 3s. That's quite big. You also have -1 save contagion, access to in play company anyway, which where I'd recommend these. Do not take these in fly alone. So That's going to help fix your low AP issue, because now all your weapons are effectively plus 1 AP higher. So you got an AP2 battle cannon, AP2 heavy bolter, potentially AP4 las cannon, all the havoc, the combi bolters, etc. all going to AP1 as well, which is quite nice. On top of this, we also have access to the Boil Blight stratagem and the Ferric Blight stratagem. Both of these help with fixing the low AP issue. Now you can give Ignores cover to all the weapons. So now the Battle Cannon has gone from Strength 10 AP1 to Strength 10 AP2 Ignores cover. That's effectively a 2 AP flip, which is really powerful. And that Boil Blight affects the Heavy Bolter, affects the Las Cannon, affects the Combi Bolter, affects the Havoc Launcher. All of them gain a lot of value from a Boil Blight play. On top of that, if you really want someone dead, you can even play Ferric Blight on top of that to make that Defiler Battle Cannon AP2 base, plus Contagion, now it's AP3, and Ignores cover. Now, that's really starting to hit hard, because it's an AP3 Ignores cover, flat 3 damage Battle Cannon. And again, if you're near an infected objective marker and you get a 6 to wound, it's AP4, it's a Melter Cannon now. Like, the other armies can't do this. This is why Defilers suck for them. But we have a lot of tools to help us fix the problems the Defiler has, and it really starts to allow the Defiler to shine in a way that you may have overlooked before. On top of this, we have a Lord of Virulence. What does the Lord of Virulence do? The Lord of Virulence gives +1 to hit and ignore cover to blast weapons from your army if the Lord of Virulence can see the target. What's that giant battle cannon on the chest? It's a blast weapon. So now that battle cannon is hitting on twos, and ignoring cover, as well as the Havoc Launcher, because that's also blast. So now you can potentially have an AP2, ignores cover, ballistic skill 2, ignores cover, strength 10, AP potentially 3, flat damage 3, blast cannon. That's scary and that's reliable. Then you can bring someone along like Mortarion, who's already really good at the moment, to give the damn thing reroll 1s to wound and ignore modifiers. So if you're shooting this at a squad of like enemy, like let's say Death Shroud for example, let's say like Terminators, so like an enemy squad of Terminators, the new Death Watch Terminators, they're annoying, they're everywhere. So you're going to be D6 plus 3 shots, plus 1 for blast, so you can have D6 plus 4 shots, so you average about 7 shots, you're hitting on 2s, for a lot of virulence, so you get about 6 average hits, you'll be wounding them on 2s, because they'll be toughness 4, because of contagion, you're strength 10 anyway, so even if it's a T5, it don't matter. Rerolling 1s, so you get out 6 wounds onto them there. At AP3, you put them on their invuln, they're going to fail about 3 of them. You're just going to blow up about 3 Terminators straight up, just off the cannon. And then you've got the Heavy Bolter, then you've got a little plink shots around. And if you start shooting these things at tanks, you can start wounding tanks. You can start dueling tanks at range. Not the heavy tanks in the game, like Leman Rushes and Rogal Dawns, but like Predators, for example. Even Vindicators to a degree. Lancers, you shoot, you hit on 2s, you wound on 3s, rerolling 1s. Each one is going to be AP3 ignoring cover, potentially. Like, okay. that's I hope you roll 6s or you're just dead, mate. That's, and each one of them flat 3 damage, remember. 4 go through, your tank goes pop, and that's before the Heavy Bolter and stuff fires. So actually, this thing starts to hit pretty reliably and pretty damn hard. And again, let's not forget, this is just its shooting. It has the melee still to back this up, so it can fire this at a Lancer over there, pop that thing, charge a unit in front of it, and now it's got AP4 melee. It's going to punch that thing to death. And the fact Mortarion is giving it a bit of reliability, and again, a death blob of like Mortarion and a Defiler walking around, that is a very scary thing, because you charge one of these things, then you're going to get like heroics by the other. Because it does, if you look here, have the Walker keyword, which means this thing is eligible to heroically intervene, which is really nice. So no one wants to get heroics on by a Defiler, which is really, really cool. So we have a lot of tools in our army to actually take what would be considered a mediocre meh profile and actually start tuning it up to be really, really good and reliable as well. So, and this again, unique to Death Guard. The Contagion is unique to Death Guard, Lord of Virulence is unique to Death Guard, and Boil Blight to give Ignores cover. Or again, Lord of Virulence just does it. The Boil Blight obviously gives Ignore cover to all the guns, not just the Battle Cannon and the Havoc Launcher. But also Ferric Blight to increase the AP, and Mortarion to come along so you can't get armor get tempted, you get reroll ones to wound, you can't get smoked or anything like that. It starts to all add together to make a pretty damn good little firing platform. So here's some tips for you to sort of get the most out of this Defiler. Think of it as a battle tank with claws. It is a Leman Russ that can defend itself. It is first and foremost a firing platform. Too many people try to run the Defiler up because they want to use the big snippy claws and it dies on the way. Don't look at it like that. Look at it as a firing platform that can defend itself. So you're going to be sitting on lanes of fire, shooting away, blasting everything you can, and when something comes close or an opportunity arises itself, you then go and snip and chop up. You're not actively running at the enemy to make use of the claws. The claws are your secondary weapon, and the battle cannon and the shooting firepower that you bring is your primary weapon. You can easily sit on your natural objective at OC5, defending it, blasting away across the board, and be happy there. And towards late game, you can start pushing out. Always remember your supporting units. You want to set up contagion. This thing really benefits the more support you give it. So if you get a unit cultist set up so that it can move advance and put something in contagion range so you can boil blight it, so the Defiler can shoot at it, you're helping your Defiler get a lot more value. This is the same for your supporting units like the Lord of Virulence and Mortarion. Set them up in places and ways that they're going to be able to benefit your Defilers. So, you make sure when you deep strike your Terminators in, the LOV can see the priority target for the Defiler. So you still set up your charge for the Death Shroud, but your LOV can still mark your target for your Defiler. It just really helps the Defiler hit that next level of efficiency and that next level of lethality. And when it all adds together, it's quite a damn scary unit. So always be thinking, how am I going to support this Defiler? This is a unit you have to actively be working to support and working to help. Shoot down angles. So again, this model is big and weird. It is such an odd model. It has big crabby claw legs, it has spikes all over it, it has guns sticking out of here, there, everywhere. As much as this can be cumbersome and annoying to move, you can also use it to your advantage. For a Predator to peek, it has to shove its ass or its front out mainly, or a sponson. Which means it's probably going to get shot back quite a lot. However, a Defiler can actually, if you have the Scourge for example, stick out the very tip of one of those little tentacly maces and shoot from that. You can shoot from the tippy toe of these spikes here, or the tippy toe of this claw. You have so many weird sticky out bits to get angles to fire at stuff that most tanks would have to expose the hull for. Then make sure you're using it. Get these angles. You're a slow model, you have to make the most of your angles. And don't forget, pivoting on this thing can often give you more movement than the 2 inches it loses you because it's such a weird long model. So don't be afraid to pivot it. And remember, once you've pivoted once, you can pivot an infinite amount of times without losing movement. So you lose your 2, so you move 6, but you can move out, pivot, move, pivot. So you can go, I'll take my 2, I'll move 1, pivot, move 1, pivot, move 1, pivot, move 1, pivot to get around a corner. It's actually easier than you think to get around corners. It's not as bad as you think. It just sounds bad in principle till you start playing it. So just remember, you can just pivot to the high heavens. So yeah, make sure you're drawing LOS and getting those angles and keep this thing firing away and keeping it also safe from too much retaliation. And the last bit is know when to push. OC5 on this unit is really good, especially in the late game when people are running on, egg fumes. But also remember, once you've dealt with the threat of the enemy anti-tank, this is now a big scary crap. This is not easy to kill. 14 wounds T10, 3 up, 5 up. You can now start to have more impact on the board. You can now start to use this as a bully unit. It's a 14 wound, got real scary melee. Now start pushing it out places, start taking the mid board, start pushing into your opponent, force them to either run away or to fight this Defiler, because the Defiler's probably going to win in those instances. So understand, once you have had the impact on the game from the firing platform place, to then transform your Defiler from a firing platform into a bully unit. This is the great thing of being a hybrid combined arms unit. You have to use it as such, okay? So use it as a firing platform first. Once the enemy's weakened, then go, okay, grabbing time, and start walking up with those claws, snapping, and start ripping stuff apart. And last but not least, just for today, we're going to show the list that Defiler Don, the Lord of Crabs himself, took to 9th place at the Las Vegas Open, a 1,055 player tournament. That's mad to say. And you got 9th place, 9th. You're going to the shell around using this damn thing. The best Death Guard player at the event, bear in mind, with this wacky ass list. So if you're going to sit here and read this video and be like, Defiler's sucking, what am I making this? Clearly not. Clearly he can do work. So he was rocking Plague Company, he's got Mortarion, he's got the Lord of Virulence, so there's the supporting package. He's got a Plague Bus, hell yeah. He's got Typhus, and he's got 2 Defilers rocking the Scourge and the Heavy Bolters on them. He also has the Combi Bolter and the Havoc Launcher. It's just, you're there for free, you just chuck them on anyway. But the choices he made with a Scourge and the Heavy Bolter. He's got 3 Predators to go with it, so really, really scary firebase there. Triple Predator, double Defiler, real scary. He's got a unit of Death Shroud for his Lord of Virulence, 2 Mythic Blight Drones, and 3 Haulers that are going to be playing forward. They're going to be sort of scoring and also spreading Contagion to support his Demon Engine. So if you wanted a list right now, if you got 2 Defilers sat on the side, or maybe just 1, and you're like, damn it, this sounds actually pretty fun, and I want to give this thing a go, here's the template for you. Go and take this, change it to what you need to, but this has got results. 9th place at LVO. So if you are sat there and you're thinking, God damn, I really want to try these Defilers out now, voila, I present to you the Lord himself, Defiler, Lord of Crabs, the Crab Cabal. He raises us upon his snippy claws, and this is a great list for you to try. It's a very fun list as well. People have tried it in our Discord and have a blast with it, so give it a go. But that's everything for today, so hopefully I've convinced you to maybe look at the Defiler a different way, give it a whirl, give it a try, let us know how you found it, because I think it's a really fun unit. It's also just funny looking, a big crab with snippy claws makes me laugh. But if you do have fun and you have enjoyed it and you want to give it a whirl, let us know in the comments how it goes, or if you're part of our community on Discord, let us know. I'd love to hear back from you, and I hope we've made you take a second look at this data sheet, just like we did with the Plague Bust, just like we did with the Poxwalkers and the Predator Destructors, like we did back months and months and months ago before they became meta staples. So thank you so much for listening today and for tuning in. Thank you to our viewers, thank you to our YouTube members, thank you to our friends over at Vanguard Tactics, and our affiliate link to Element Games is in the description below if you want to pick up some extra products in the UK. Use our affiliate link, you get some gems, we get some gems, everybody's happy. And thank you also to our friends at Saltire Games who make some products for us, which are currently on holiday at the moment, so I will not shill them just yet. But last but not least, thank you so much for you, the listener. Please, again, feel free to hit that little thumbs up button, leave a comment, maybe subscribe if you like it, and maybe even consider becoming a Plague Marine. But for now, everyone, thank you for tuning to this episode of Profiles of Decay. I'll catch you all on the next episode. I'm going to be interviewing Don Hooson, actually. So if you want to hear from the King of Crabs himself, keep subscribed to the channel, put on that little bell notification, and as soon as it goes up, you'll be notified. For now, everyone, take care, stay rotten, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.